In the world of single malt Scotch whiskey, there aren't many fully sherry-matured bottles so widely available and with the same level of prestige that the Macallan 12 has. But has the time finally come to move on to something else? Is there anything better out there for you? Let's consider the pros and cons of this iconic 12-year-old and see if we can find you some better options. First, in its defense, it does have a number of points in its favor. It's 100% sherry matured, of course, and it certainly projects an image of class and prestige. This isn't just about image, though. It does have decent flavor, too. There's some nice berries in there, a little sweetness, a little sourness. Mostly dark fruit here, and it's actually pretty winey, especially on the finish. It's a perfectly competent single malt, and it's naturally colored, too, which is a plus. There's actually really nothing wrong with this, and the brand must be doing something right because they sell a lot of whiskey, and they're still able to charge you more than most of their competitors. But did you ever think you might want more than this? Now, I'm not talking about more in the way you might be thinking of. No, what you're seeking is not some bang for your buck under-the-radar whiskey that delivers a sipping experience just as good or maybe even better than this one at a more affordable price. No, that's just what they'll be expecting you to do. You're not hunting for some whiskey that's myopically concerned with the quality of their product and not excessively worried about their image. No, if anything, you crave a whiskey with more concern for their image, more luxurious, more prestigious. You're ready for a real upgrade, aren't you? So to keep them on their toes, why don't you swap out your old Macallan 12 Sherry Oak for this one instead? This is the Macallan 30-year-old. Just like the 12 you're leaving behind, this one is also fully matured in sherry casks. But I know what you might be thinking. This is only 2.5 times as old as the 12, so is it really even that much of an upgrade? That is true, it may only be 2.5 times as old, but it's 55 times the price. And every mathematician knows that price equals quality, so by the transitive properties, this one's 55 times as good. But $5,500 seems like a pretty hefty price tag, you might say. How am I supposed to afford that? Which is a fair question, but there are some options you may not have considered. First, you could try to charge it to your credit card, and while it's almost always a good idea to go into debt in order to purchase unnecessary luxury items, you may have a preset credit limit and the transaction might not go through. If that happens, what do you do then? Are you out of luck? No, not quite. The next thing you can try is to apply for a small bank loan. Don't make the mistake I did, though. I told them I was taking out the loan to buy a 30-year-old bottle of whiskey, so they denied my application. What you should do instead is tell them you need the money to buy a used car so you can get to work, or maybe that you need the loan to start a small business. That'll fool them. But what if they're not fooled, and you still get denied your loan, no matter what story you feed them? Well, here's a hack that worked for me. I have my mortgage through the same bank that denied me the whiskey loan, so I just stopped making the payments for a few months in order to save up enough money to buy this bottle. So, the bank thought they denied giving me a loan to buy this 30-year-old bottle of scotch, but in a way, they kinda did give it to me. Now I know what you might be thinking. If I stop paying my mortgage, won't the bank just foreclose on my home, and I'll end up living under a bridge somewhere? Here's another objection you might have. After you drink the whiskey, won't you just have wasted $5,500 and have nothing to show for it? Au contraire. Even once the whiskey's gone, you still have the bottle, don't you? You can now wield that empty bottle to project status in a number of interesting ways. Here are a few ideas. If you're a runner, instead of running your 5K with that old cheap-looking water bottle you've had since high school, why don't you fill that 30-year-old Macallan bottle with water and take that on the run with you instead? That way, win or lose, the other runners will recognize you as a jogger of superior taste. Here's another thing you can do. If you hang on to the bottle, you can smuggle it into a theater and fulfill your lifelong dream of being thrown out of a live performance of Les Mis for slugging 5 o'clock gin from a Macallan 30 bottle. And did you forget about the box? This thing comes in a nice box, remember? You can reuse that too. Just remove the Macallan bottle from the box and replace it with a bottle of Mountain Dew or Diet Coke. Then gift wrap it and give it to your dad on Father's Day. Won't he be surprised? So once that's all over, what now? You've already consumed your Macallan 30, so that's all gone. And you dropped the bottle during a fun run, and it smashed to pieces all over the pavement. Is your life over? Is there nowhere left for you to go? Not at all. I think you might be ready to take things to the next level. This bottle comes from the Macallan Time:Space collection. It's a whiskey that comes in a bottle shaped like Homer Simpson's donut for some reason. But unlike that one, this donut has no frosting or sprinkles and costs $1,500. And it doesn't have an age statement, and the components of the blend are undisclosed, so it's a bit of a mystery, just like space. No? That's too cheap for you? How about this one then, also from the Time:Space collection? This is whiskey that has been abducted by a tiny UFO. Here, Macallan's going for that sweet spot in the market in the overlap between the luxury goods crowd and the tinfoil hat crowd. Now, I'm not knocking tinfoil hats, of course. We need them to keep the government from reading our thoughts. But what I am saying is, this one might cost you a couple $100,000, so if you were saving up to buy a second home, why not spend that money on this instead? What's that, you say? Even this isn't enough for you? You want to spend even more money on luxury whiskey? Maybe you're ready for a whiskey that isn't really for drinking, but is more to keep locked in a display case, just to be looked at. If that's the case, why not give these two a try? These whiskeys look like they belong in a museum with security guards protecting them. And come to think of it, you might want to beef up your own security system if you decide to purchase these. Your ideal setup here would be to place them in the center of a room on a pedestal and surround them with lasers. You know the kind that, when they get tripped, an alarm goes off and a bunch of steel doors slam shut? But wait, there's more. Maybe you're the sort of person who always likes to keep a pint of Popov vodka in a bottle-shaped hole carved out of the inside of your Oxford English Dictionary. If this sounds like you, the next one might be right up your alley. It's basically the same idea, but instead of a dictionary, this whiskey comes in its own custom-made fake book, and the bottle inside it costs about $100,000 more than that bottle of Popov. You can keep it on the shelf in your library, next to those other books you don't read. So there it is. There's no need to worry about what comes next if you've moved on from the Macallan 12. Now you're equipped to take the next step.